Okay, right off the bat, what does and doesn't get reviewed is generally scheduled way in advance. So, for anyone wondering, yes, reviewing another dopey action movie primarily driven by cheesy pseudo-religious gobbledygook after the Book of Eli is a coincidence, and no more of a childish grab for attention than anything else I do. Not that I didn't enjoy all of that calm, constructive feedback or anything. Anyway, back in the mid-1990s, a peculiar trend hit the world of fiction, or at least the small sectors of the world of fiction comprising Image Comics and DC Vertigo. Hey, what if we do that kind of cute thing where you, like, retrofit old mythology into superhero format, you know? Like Marston was doing with Greek gods in the 40s, or Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were doing with Norse gods in the 60s, but instead we do it with, like, medieval Christian stuff and Catholic Apocrypha and all that. Since lots of people totally still believe that stuff, it'll seem like we're all edgy and blasphemous without having to exert any real intellectual energy. Rockin'! A slew of material grew out of this premise. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it made in Japan and featuring giant robots and therefore awesome, but most of it incredibly silly, although it did have the net positive effect of setting down a solid and lasting point of intersection between the subcultures of geek and goth, for which my libido will certainly be forever thankful. In any case, Legion feels a lot like something that was either made or at least thought up in that particular milieu, not only in terms of its ability to reimagine any sort of vague, mythic figure into a scowly, long-coated man with gun, but also in the tiresome, artificial profundity formula of taking generic action premise number 7 and sticking random chunks of Revelation and the Book of Enoch in among the exposition and proper nouns. The basic idea is that, as some have suspected all along, the Almighty is actually kind of a mean-spirited douchebag. He's decided it's time to hit the refresh button on humanity via worldwide genocide by Angel. Paul Bettany works his ass off trying to keep a straight face as the archangel Michael, who breaks rank and goes off to prevent the apocalypse by protecting some sort of impending messianic birth for reasons that are never made especially clear. About 99% of the action takes place in a rundown diner where Michael and the standard collection of societal cross-section representatives hunker down to do battle with the armies of God. Okay, so the premise is inane, but at least it's the sort of thing that some visual panache might make up for, except that the whole enterprise comes off embarrassingly cheap. The CGI looks like a PS1 cutscene, the prosthetic gore is laughable. Hell, at one point we see what I think was supposed to be heaven, and it looks like a redressed set from a Mortal Kombat movie. The second Mortal Kombat movie. Of course, it doesn't look like the Almighty was exactly working from a blank check here either. Despite the conceit of worldwide apocalyptic angel war, all we really end up getting is cut-rate zombie siege retread with people firing machine guns at boring, possessed humans. The promised dust-up between Michael and the mace-wielding Gabriel in Act 3 is an unintentionally hilarious piece of mock macho chest-puffing that plays out like a Shakespeare in the Park recreation of Goku vs. Vegeta. You'd think at least the combination of the ridiculous premise, ham-handed acting, and made-for-TV budget would push this into so bad it's good territory, but mostly it's just boring as hell, save for the occasional pity you feel for good actors like Bettany, Dennis Quaid, and Charles Dutton having to work with such a terrible screenplay. Just for some perspective here, folks, I did 12 years hard time in Catholic school, and let me tell you, the whole, whoa, in the actual Bible, angels were like God's personal black ops team, is something everyone thinks they're the first person to ever notice, and that's why there's so many damn movies where someone thought the edgiest thing in the world was to go, oh, look at this, these guys are badasses, not like your grandma's little precious moments cherubs. And yeah, that worked great back in Prophecy, but now it's been done to death, and I'm thinking, at this point, wouldn't it have been cooler if they were the little cherub things? Like, instead of another bunch of meatheads shooting each other with a bunch of guns, it'd be little big-eyed winged babies flying around slaughtering people? That would be a good movie.
This is one of those movies that now plays like the pilot to a Netflix show that just never happened. Like, I'm not sure about the timeline, but at this point, it feels like this would have slotted in nicely as like a couple episode arc of Supernatural or some other thing that has, what was that, wasn't there a TV show where a guy was like a detective who was like the descendant of the Brothers Grimm or something? Some other like mid-tier Supernatural thing that ran just forever and had this kind of stuff going on in the background. Stuff that was considered, you know, edgy and way out there when Neil Gaiman was doing it in Sandman in the 90s and is now just like the background noise of every other syndicated Supernatural show. This feels like one of those. But yeah, if you want to, this is out there, around, still pretty easy to find if you want to see it. Maybe I was too hard on it just for being a generic thing. You know, maybe there's nothing wrong with watching, you know, Good Omens with machine guns played out for like 90 minutes in a diner somewhere as conceptually, but I think I've seen this at least one or two more times, just bouncing around on basic cable, and it's not good, but it's like inoffensively bad. But yeah, that is Legion.